go down. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Our timekeeper will start that as soon as you take a breath, Jack.
My name is Jack.
That's on. It wasn't. It was on.
Not synced up, but it's not. That's all.
It was a minute ago.
I know, they're,
Here, try this one.
Next.
This is one thing we gotta get fixed. Okay, I'm Jack Fisher. I live in La Vista. That's the neighborhood with the Triple X Street. If y'all know where La Vista is. Myself, I retired from McCoy's Building Supply, which is a local Texas-based chain in Texas. I worked 35 years as a store manager, and then 5 years as a commercial sales manager, doing outside sales. Cindy and I, my wife, we moved to HCR in 2020, and in 2021, I joined the ARCMOD committee. I served on the ARCMOD committee for 4 years, and I held all three of the committee officer positions as secretary, vice chair, and chair. And I also participated in rewriting the design guidelines.
1 minute. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'll let them.
Tell me when.
My name is Joey, and my name is Joey Gonzalez. I was born in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico, but I was raised here in San Antonio, Texas. I've been here in San Antonio all my life. My wife and I, we were educators. While she was secretary, I was an educator for 31 years. And if anybody that knows how to put up with neighbors or mothers and fathers and uncles, and is a teacher, because they come to you with a fierce look on their face when they have a problem. Now, I was on the ARCMOD with Jack, and I was also on the board for 1 year, and I was just there because they wouldn't let me do anything. So hopefully you'll give me a chance to fix that by putting me on the board so I can really do something this time. And we can move on, you know. I'm not gonna do any secret things like that secret of the pool, you know, that covered all the windows, so.
You ready, man? Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking time to join us this afternoon. My name is Dennis Falk. My wife Joey and I have lived in the Canyons since July of 23, and we have enjoyed every minute of it. Now, contrary to that enjoyment, there are still issues that need to be addressed in order to move the association forward, hopefully to be the best in the country. Specifically, I'd like to address those issues that were errors of omission or errors of commission by the past boards. I think my background as a CEO for hospitals and regional vice president, it provides me those skills necessary to address those issues. So to that end, I'm committed to holding Pulte and/or CCMC accountable for the $1 million plus damage to the indoor pool envelope. And I have a proposed policy to do that. Hopefully we'll get some questions to be able to address that and answer that. Also, securing and maintaining fiscal integrity is extremely important. You know, Nancy and I did an audit. That's good.
Good afternoon, Susan Latham. I'm currently a resident of the Lower Springs with my husband, Alan Kronberger. We've lived here for 6.5 years. I'm a retired Department of Defense civilian with tours in Texas, Hawaii, and most of my career in Maryland. Got here in about 2018, have been involved from the very beginning, have been on several committees, and most recently I have been on the website training team along with 2 other fellow residents here, as well as on the finance committee. One of the things I want to focus on, or 3 areas of focus, is accountability, communication, and tenacity. So accountability, looking at contracts, fiscal responsibility, communication, better communication with the community, and tenacity. I know there's a lot of questions that go to the board right now, and they choose to answer some, and others they don't choose to answer. I will make that vow of being one of the ones to at least get an answer. Might not be what you want to hear, but I'll take care of at least getting an answer for you. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Miller. My wife and I first moved here in 2009, and we lived in the Masons. In 2018, we decided we should move closer to our children. In 2022, we retreated back to HCR, and we now live in the Ridge. And my career has been, I spent 20 years in the Army, and then I went to work for the government in Washington, D.C., and worked the rest of my career for them, moving up in various levels of management there. Right now, I'm on the advisory committee, and you know, when the challenge was put forth for people who care to step up, I decided it was time to step up. And I appreciate all you showing up and the fact that you care. And I think that's what's going to move us forward, is getting more people caring about this community. And I think we need to improve the communication that we don't have right now, the two-way communication to and from you, the transparency that you need to know what's going on to be able to see the details of how we run this community. And also, we need to have some planning for the future.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
So my name is Jim Hall. We live in La Vista also. We've lived here since December 2019. I've served on the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the Common Area Committee for a total of four and a half years out of the 5.5 years we've lived here. For the last 18 months, I was the chair of the Common Area Committee. And as the chair, I ran my meetings where we got to speak on every agenda item as we took to it. And then we had an open session at the end. We had monthly meetings, and I think every candidate up here is committed to do monthly meetings. So I think that's something that's going to be done. I've been with 4 different boards, 3 different managers, and we still don't have written procedures for contracts, finance, all of this stuff that we need to do. The role of the board is to protect the association. So that's what we're going to focus on.
This one not working at all?
You want that one back?
No, y'all keep there. Well, I just want to thank you for the introductions, and I just want to say that we did that 1-minute introduction. We used the end of a commercial where they state, if you have any side effects on medicine, I thought that'd give them enough time. Apparently it was a little short. Anyway, so we'll get started with questions now. And if you have a question, please raise your hand. All right, I'll start right here with Mary.
Nancy.
Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rubenstein, and I have a financial background. Taught operations management, was a CFO, and we call it a review, not an audit, or attempted to, of the books here. So my question is, during that review, we found a lot of irregularities. There, to me, appears to be no way of verifying that what was done. As an example, building and maintenance decide to do a tree, they have the money to do it, the invoice comes in, did the tree really get here when we got the bill? There's no matching of it. So we have a lot of loopholes in our financial system. What do you propose to do to help us stop paying for multiple bills that we don't have?
Do you have that directed at anyone?
We can start with Jack.
Okay.
I think I'd like to hear all of their answers.
Yep. I think it's a great idea. At the last advisory meeting, Ron Miguel proposed having a task force to look into the ways to cut expenses, save money, and get rid of a wasteful spending. And I agree that's a good thing going forward, is start with a task force to look into all these things that you've looked at. I agree with everyone you said. We need to have the match. In our company, we did matching. Most every company does something like that, and we just forward the bill to the county department, pay it. Somebody has to approve it, so
I'm right with you there on that. Are you finished?
Well, my neighbor, I have a neighbor, that was on, oh, not that loud.
I have a neighbor that was on the finance committee, and he was run off because he was asking too many questions. And he was telling them what they were doing was wrong, and that they were not doing it correctly, or that it would be better if they did it this way or that way. And apparently, some people in the finance committee already set their way, so they didn't want to do it. But it's true. We do need to find out what happens when an invoice gets put out, gets sent out, and then we get a contractor come and do the work. But we never really hear whether they did the work or not, and we have no way of checking it right now. You know, we can look, we can go around looking and see, but since we don't know anything that was going on until they post it on the board meetings, you know, when they start approving the VLSs and all that, and at that time, you know, money's gone. So what we need to do is find an invoice system that will keep a record of what went out, who were the contractors, were they hired, how many bids were there, you know, and what was the cost, and what did the contract say, whether if it overran, that they were gonna charge you some more, or whether you said, okay, no, this is your bid, you're gonna stay there, whether you made a mistake or not, it's your mistake. So we need to have some kind of a record like that. Now, task force are nice, but we have too many of them already. You know, we need to get the people that are good in finances and just go to them and ask them, would you be willing to come and help us to do this? Like what you said, like my neighbor, he said he was willing to help me with any financial question that comes up if I get on the board, so that way I can have the right answer and do the right thing with the finance committee, because, you know, I'm not a finance person, but I work with engineers and I was an educator, so I deal with money because I was in charge of the technology department.
Ready? Okay. I have a distinct advantage in this question, I guess, because I participated with Nancy on that audit or review. And what we found, let me start over. The heart of any good accounts payable system is a good purchase order system. And we don't have it here. We can't confirm who ordered the process, i.e. a contractor or an invoice for, you know, supplies. Nothing's ever signed off on. So you need certain areas of control. Number one, when you order something, you need to fill it out that you, in fact, ordered it, if in fact you're allowed to make that order. Number two, when it comes in, you have to sign off on the fact that it came in. Now, for a contractor, we should be going behind the contractor and confirming that the work was done. And my understanding is we don't do that here. So again, this gets back to fiscal integrity, and it's a big part of fiscal integrity it's missing. So then once you confirm that the work has been in fact been done, then you can feel comfortable perhaps giving a disbursement for that work. But there are several areas of controls that are missing right now in this organization. It's unfortunate because it's been about 16 years, and Nancy and I are finding it on year 16, 17. You know, there's something wrong when that happens. All these committees that are functioning, how is it that it went on that long without anybody knowing about it? I don't get it. I really don't understand how that happened.
Thank you.
So since I am a current member of the Finance Committee, I will be finishing up my second year at the end of June. So I can definitely agree. You guys looked at it for 1 month. I've been looking at it for 20 months now. And yes, there is definitely some issues with the way we do things. We do not have purchase orders. We do get invoices, and the invoices often are not very descriptive of what the work that was done. It will come in from a particular vendor, and it will just say, work completed on 15 April. What did they do? So there's certainly a lot of problems with that. I recently had a conversation with the property manager here, the community manager, and she says, I think we need to go back and ask the vendor to do a more descriptive invoice. I'm thinking, yeah, that would be a good idea. So we definitely need additional fiscal responsibility. I go back, every month the Finance Committee does get a copy of what's called the draft financials. Every single month I go back with probably 8 to 10 questions about what's this payment and does it go back to this work that we promised? A lot of times I think the only thing that we have that's close to a purchase order is the BRS, but there's so many different things that we have out there. We have probably about 15 standing contracts that we either pay on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. Who's checking on those? According to the CCMC contract, that's their responsibility to do that. And I believe that they're not doing that currently right now. Thank you.
You know, each and every person in here is an owner of this company. And I think as an owner, you have a right to know how things work. And I think right now, we don't know how this system works. So I think the first thing to do is to find out exactly how their system works and let everybody in the community know how that's working. And then we can, as has been said, we've got a lot of expertise in the community can give us ideas as to how we can tell CCMC that we want them to do it. And they're working for us, we're not working for them. So when we tell them, they need to respond. If they can't respond, we can find a new management company. All right? So there's a lot to do with that, but we have to start off finding out exactly how they're doing this. You know, when the place was painted, I asked, well, who checks this over? And the answer was that CCMC does. Well, you know, the committee that authorized this, maybe they'd like to look at it, or maybe the board would like to look at it before it's approved, but that doesn't happen. So there's more questions than answers anytime you ask anything around here. So that's where I'll leave this.
So my experience is operational contracting. I spent 4 years as a contracting officer in the Corps of Engineers. And I can tell you that every common area committee contract in the last 18 months has had a committee member looking at it. I've walked all the streets, I've looked at all the signs, we have somebody check the fences, we get invoices every month from our irrigator, and we check those against Susan, because when she asks questions about it,
I'm usually the one, yes, I admit it.
we tell her what it is. So, yes, it may be CCMC's contractual responsibility. We went for about a year gap when they didn't have people to do that. Because you gotta be qualified to know what you're looking at. And I'm qualified. I've done buildings, I've done streets, I've been an inspector, I've been a project engineer. So we will have people looking at these. And the BRS does tell a lot, because if you do a BRS right, it's got the contract scope and the specifications and everything attached. And everything that Common Area Committee's done in the last 18 months meets those requirements.
Okay, that finalizes that question. The next question we have, gentleman far back. Hold on, we got your mic coming.
I don't think I'll need it.
State your name, please.
Okay, my name is Hal Brock. I've been here, my wife and I, Lou, have been here about 5 years. We live in the Mesas. This is one of the elephants in the room, and I'll direct this to Susan to start off since she brought up communications. So what steps or practices do you propose to improve the two-way communications between the residents and the board, to include, you know, how this would happen during board meetings, not having to go on forever and ever? Again, I guess primarily with the intent of improving transparency so the residents are kept in the loop and aware as much as possible.
Thanks, Hal, for the question. So I think Jim had said it earlier, I believe we all do support monthly board meetings, which is definitely a change from the quarterly that we have right now. From a communication point of view, a couple boards ago, there were 2 members, it was Kirk Fleener and Carol Trossel at the time. They did a monthly column in the newsletter that told the community what they did that month. They went to X meetings, they met with the lawyer on topics X or Y. So I'm not sure if monthly is gonna satisfy people. I'd start maybe every other week, even if it's just like an email that comes out similar to what we see from CCMC, you know, on community highlights and events that are coming up. Every 2 weeks of this is what the board's done this week, who we've met with, things that we've decided. A lot of times it's out there on the web page now, but they don't tell you that it's out there. The board has voted on a BRS, has voted to spend a lot of money, and you've got to know to go to this column and dig on the way down. I think we just need to do a better job of communicating. And another way is, whether it's a town hall or a friend of mine suggested, just kind of like professors have office hours. Maybe there's once a week, 2 or 3 of the board members, maybe 2, because you can't have 3 because it would be a quorum, or start to be a quorum. Sit in a conference room and let people come in and voice concerns and have different issues. So just a couple ideas out there.
What's a BRS? A lot of us back here were asking.
Okay, so it's
Just
well, actually, there was it's a business resolution summary,
Okay.
board resolution summary. So it's kind of, if you were in the government, it's like a staff summary sheet. It's a decision memo.
Okay.
We decided to do something. We're resolved to do it. We're going to spend this much money. It's going to come out of this funding line. So think about like your checkbook of, is it coming out of my savings account or my
Okay.
your regular checking account. So it documents, they're all online once they've been approved or once they're in a draft form. But as Jim said, at his committee meetings, they do discuss them, and then it follows a process of a committee, oftentimes to finance, and then onto the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
You've all mentioned it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Appreciate that question. Ditto on that, but I think what's really important is you need to close the loop on the communication. You can have a town hall and you can listen all you want to, but you need to take those pieces of information back as a board and discuss them and decide what you want to do with it, and then distribute that communication back to the individuals who brought it up. And I think that's a big missing piece. It has come through clearly to me that all of us are very frustrated with not being able to be heard. Now, being heard is one of the issues, as I said. So one of the things I did as a manager was I invited people to sit down and have coffee with the CEO, similar to what Susan suggested with the office hours perhaps. But even if they have to cater, small groups, I have found for sure that people are more willing to express their opinions in small groups than large groups. Who wants to look stupid in front of a big group? And not me, but I'll take a chance in a small group. So that's one of the things I like to add to it. But again, it's important to close that loop. Once you hear it and you get the ideas, you have to make that commitment to coming back as a board, perhaps, discussing among your 5 or 7 members, decide is it something we're going to do. And also, you need to tell people up front, we're all adults. There are some things we're not going to change. It's as simple as that. That's just the way life is. I don't think anybody here expects, come up with an idea and you're going to change it just because it's your idea. That's not the way it works, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess. But that's, just another way of looking at it in addition to what Susan has said.
We're all gonna get to answer.
I agree with comments previous, and I think that first thing we gotta do is develop the relationship between the board and the residents, a positive relationship. And the only way to do that is to answer questions in a timely manner and get people that wanna know what's going on. And hiding behind 3 months of activity and not telling anybody what's going on is not the way to do it. And I think the monthly board meetings will solve the bulk of that problem if we have the communication at the meetings and not you ask the question and we'll answer next week. Have no problem with taking comments from people about things discussing at the meetings. Maybe things we're not discussing, but the ideas come up. We've got a lot of talented people in this community, and they want to know what's going on, and I have no problem with sharing that information.
Transparency, that was a big word that gets thrown around, but for some reason there's no transparency going there. And I see it as a problem because the previous board, they want to run everything themselves. And if you were to learn what they're doing, then it probably wouldn't get done. By the time we learn what is being done is at the board meeting 3 months later, and they already voted on it. So we're going to stop that. No more voting. My thing would be no more voting secretly or by emails or by Zoom. We have to be together, and we do the actual voting at a meeting. Let you all give us an idea of what you think, and if it's something that you all think is better than what we came up with, then we will not go through with that idea. Because the residents will have the final word as to what is good and what is not. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna be for everything, like small things, you know, CCMC's got an account of $5,000 where they can buy, you know, toilet paper, paper towels and all that. That's just miscellaneous item. But if it's a big item like $1,200,000 pool that doesn't need that much work, then we should have learned about that earlier. They laughed at me when I told them when I got off the board that it was going to cost about $1 million, and oh boy, everybody, you know, they said, $1 million? Are you crazy? Well, I was crazy because it went over by 200,000. So the thing is to let you all know, get you all involved. We need you all, but you have to be involved. As you notice, look at the people here, they're all from one neighborhood, right? They think that the other neighborhood couldn't come. This is open for everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
It's open for everybody. So this is what I mean. We need to get more involvement by the residents so we can know what's going on.
So, I have a military background, and I'm used to the guy at the top telling me what he wants to do, and then letting me figure out how to do it. Our board is let the committees figure out what to do. So I propose to have the board make a business plan. It's briefed to the community for next year's budget. Instead of having the communities decide what the priority is, the board needs to share that with the community, and that becomes the budget. Further, there are some rules about conducting meetings. So business meetings have to be conducted by the governing documents, by Robert's Rules of Order. But there's nothing that says that you can't adjourn that meeting and have an open town hall following a board meeting. And those can be free for all. I would suggest they need to be time limited. I did one as a common area committee that went 2 hours. So they need a time limit. The third element of that is forums, town halls, where we talk about one subject. We did a town hall in 2023, you may or may not have been here, where I talked about access, gates and fences. A lot of stuff that could have been put in there, but nothing was ever done. So my proposal is, once you do a forum, and it's a single subject, you end up with a plan to execute. And that becomes, that the board either approves or disapproves. So we need our board to be more hands-on and not voting by email like Joe says.
Thank you. Yeah, I certainly agree. That's, one of my big things is no more email votes unless there's an emergency. Even in committees, everything up in front of people. Communication here right now is broken. We all know that. And that's also created some animosity in the community. And what we need to do is try and temper this down. And we can do that by getting information out better. And we need to explain why decisions are being made so people understand the rationale. But also we need to keep them better informed as things progress. And what I think we ought to have is a weekly email coming out from our community manager telling us things that happened this week and things that are happening next week. And when something critical about our community happens, it should be in there, right? How many people in here don't know about the homeless example outside of our community? Okay, they don't know that there is one. What have we been told about that? That affects our community, it's close to us. Why aren't we hearing about that right now? The storm the other night, a tree split here right on the other side of the, of the clubhouse. Did they mention that?
Please, let's hold it down.
These are important things to us, and this is the information you have to get out to people, and this is how you stop rumors by getting factual information out. And I'm going to stop. My 2 minutes are up.
24 seconds.
All right, let me look for something else here. Again, You know, I certainly support the, you know, the monthly board meetings, and then we conduct the business in front of everybody, and we get a chance to meet people. And I think when we come up with plans for things, the planning starts with hearing from the people about an idea.
There we go. Okay. I'll go back here first.
I'm Ken Solomon with the Winds. First, let me thank all 6 of you for stepping up and trying to make our community better. My question has to do with the talent that's at HCR. How are you going to use them? We have such talent here. People have devoted all their lives to certain careers, but we don't seem to utilize those people. Let me give you some example. Our moderator, Johnny, was at a building and maintenance program and asked all kinds of questions about storage unit, which I know nothing about that subject, but it seemed like his expertise was ignored. We have a risk manager for UTSA, who's a risk manager for UTSA, all the schools, but we have teachers making decisions about insurance issues. I was president of an insurance company, and they ignore my thoughts about insurance issues. So my question is, how are you going to utilize the expertise of the people we have, which is just incredible to me, and use that as a resource and get to know what the careers were of these people and utilize them?
We'll start.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I think the problem is that in the past, especially with the pool, people want to voice their opinion about it who are not knowledgeable. They get shut down. Like, no, we don't need it. And that really aggravates me, because I don't know anything about some things, and I may know something about the other, but and some of these people, that's their livelihood, and you don't want to get their opinion on something that could maybe save us money. I mean, that really just doesn't sit right with me at all. So I think that's a great idea. It's just getting the word out. Hey, we're looking for any input on building this storage building. From anybody that might give us some better ideas before we jump off and spend $150,000 on something. It's fine. I think that maybe the problem is these people have gotten shut down, so it's like, why should they even bother? You know, why should they even bother getting on this committee because they got shut out for some reason? We got to turn that around where we're looking for people. The committee's got to go out and find these people and get them on their committee, and then they'll feel positive that they're doing something good for us. That they won't have a great idea and come up and say, well, we don't know, we're not going to do that. Or no, thank you, we don't need your help. That's been the mentality, I think, in the last couple of years, so we have to change that.
When I was on the board, I was in charge of the technology committee, and I got to know Bruce real well, and we thought we were doing good, you know, but when they submitted something to them, they shut them down. You know, the task force, they shut down the task force, and in one swoop, we lost 3 members of the committee, and we lost the whole task force. And I talked to those people already. I said, would you come back if we ask you to do it again? Because we're not going to listen to you. They said, no, I'm not going through that again. When they were talking about the internet, the phone system, the cameras, and all that, I told them, I went and talked to one of my neighbors, because I talk to my neighbors when I know they've got some kind of business that we can use. And I went and I talked to him and I said, hey, David, you work with the government on internet and security and cameras and all that? I said, yeah. Would you mind coming with me and looking at our system to see what we can do to fix it? He said, yeah. So he came with me, and that's one of the first times that I ever did anything where the rest of the board said no. So I was able to sneak in through the back room, you know, the one that you're not supposed to unless you got a little button much is it? Oh no, this thing is ancient, it's never gonna work. I said, I can fix all this with one thing, and you don't have to do anything to anyone, nothing will ever break down again. And then I said, really? Well, would you like to talk to the board? Yeah, I'd like to talk to the board. So when I went to the board to ask them, they said, no, we don't need that. We don't need that. We already know what we want, and we're gonna do it. So when I told him,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question, Ken. I share your frustrations on that, just as an aside. When the pool was closed in January, I went to the next building and maintenance committee meeting to offer my suggestions or expertise, whatever you label it as. Yeah, I was responsible for opening the pre-opening construction period of 10 hospitals throughout the country, all of which had indoor pools. So I thought I had something to offer. Little did I know I did not. And I don't quite understand the rationale for it, other than if they, I guess these aren't the current committee chairmen, so when I speak about the past. I don't know if they develop megalomaniac when they get to be a chairman or what it is, but they just don't want any input from us. So one of the things I'm suggesting is we take the advisory committee and revamp it and make it an advisory group, not a committee. You know, many of us have expertise, but we can't take that commitment of, an hour every month or 2 hours every month plus break time for the committee. So do an ad hoc group of advisors by category, by specialty, so we can contact them and get their input. And I think there's so much talent in this community, it's unbelievable, that it's being rejected constantly. But we have to make the community understand that we're serious about their input, that we offer it, we're not offer it, but we want it. And that's the biggest hurdle we have right now, is as Jack said, everybody's turned off about it because they go and try to participate and doesn't get anything done with it.
Yeah, Ken, good question. So I think the personal connection is critical in all of this. So you can go on the website and you put your information in about your profile, your previous experiences and things like that. There's a lot of really talented people here, and they might not necessarily stick their hand up, but if I look out there and see somebody that had IT network experience, or they were a hiring manager, pick a career field, or pick a specialty. I'm amazed at the people we've met through some of the community or neighborhood engagements we've had so far. Oh, I used to do contracting work for 15 years. I was an accountant for 15 years. And they tell these stories about applying for a committee and then getting turned down. So they get kind of this sour taste in their mouth. But I think if, whether it's the board or a committee, goes out and actively recruits and has a personal conversation, maybe that's going to help get those people to volunteer.
Yes. How can we get more people engaged than we have? I mean, we have how many households in this community, and you look around as to how many people are here, the other engagements we have, and you see the number of people voting, and we've left some people behind. We need to figure out how to reach out to them to get them more involved in our community too. There's different ways we can try and find people to support an idea. But again, if we're using the weekly newsletters that I suggested, and we put out in one of the weekly newsletters that, hey, we're going to be looking at, building a storage building. Anybody that's interested in this subject, we're going to have a meeting. And maybe we're going to have more than one meeting. And people come and people start throwing ideas around, and then you've got a lot of ideas. And at some point you can assimilate all that into something then that a committee can look at and say, okay, well, people were looking for this, that, and the other thing in this building, and let's see how we can make that into a plan. And then we do the back and forth of the communication. Everybody has to realize the more you are involved, the slower processes work, because there's a lot of back and forth that goes. So we're not going to get instant gratification on a lot of these things, which it seems like we're sort of getting right now with some of these. They pop up, they vote, they approve it, it gets done. Maybe it's not what we want done, but it gets done. So
I like the idea of taking the advisory committee to a group, but one of the things is volunteerism is going to be hit and miss. I got 1,900 folks here, 1,900 people in the community, and probably right now, half of them are getting ready to leave for the summer. So we can't always level out the requirement with volunteers. So some of that is pre-planned. We need to know who we can touch when we have an issue. We have an electrical issue, we have a mechanical issue, but we don't have a way to collect that information unless they come to us. Right now, we have no portfolio to ask. You know, I know Ken's done insurance. I know Tim Brock has done what Tim Brock's done. So we need to put together an inventory. Maybe it's the profile. CAI's done a lot of that, and that's an issue with a lot of communities. How do you get people to do that? Like, you know, I've got 2 cruises next year, and 2 cruises a year after that, because, you know, that's what we do when we're 75 and older. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's got to be a way to take advantage of the experience, because everybody that bought something in here has been successful at something. Doesn't mean you're going to be in charge, because the committees and the boards have the legal authority to make those decisions. And it doesn't mean you're going to get to the work, because we have an obligation to the community to hire licensed professionals to do designs and do supervision. So we need to take advantage of what we have. And right now, we don't have data to collect, except by volunteers.
Time's up. Thank you. Time's up. The next question, gentleman right here, then I'll get you next.
I'm Tim Ketchner from the Canyons, and I've been on many committees, and I have a question for you all. If we write some RFPs for doing a particular job, why do we just award contracts the way we have been in the past without having some input from the people that were trying to do it? And then why don't we have, like all government contracts, sealed bids that come in and get opened at one time in front of a committee instead of handed to the management, and they can open them up, and if they got somebody they want to get in that position, all they got to do is give out a number, and I've seen it when I was on a committee chair. I seen it actually happen with a manager, that they changed the RFP.
So one of my experiences was as a federal contracting officer. So we have $150 million of architects, engineer services every year. What we don't have is we don't have a contracting system. We don't have any rules written down. We don't say, these are our general conditions. This is when we pay. This is what insurance we want. We take solicitations, we put general solicitations out, and we get back what the vendor wants to give us. The business conditions we sign up to are what the vendor wrote. They don't write it to our advantage. When we did the landscaping contract, the biggest contract we had, this was 2 years ago, we had 6 proposals, had 6 prices. The committee went through them. We invited 2 back. We had interviews with those 2 vendors to say, what are you going to do for us? What do you want to change? And we selected one vendor. But he was not the cheapest, but he was the best contractor for us, we thought at the time. So one of the things we need to do is, when I came on these committees, I was told CCMC has a contracting process. They don't have a contracting process. We need to have our own, and it's got to be written, and it's got to be enforced. So that's the first step, Tim, is we got to put stuff in writing and say, this is the policy. Not just for $50,000, for $5,000, for $10,000, for $30,000. Sure. If you look at the stuff we've done, most of our stuff is in about the 15 to 30 range. That's the sweet spot, and that's what we need. We're not always going to get 3 bids, because it costs money for contractors to put together bids. So you solicit 3, you might get 2. So it's not 3 all the time.
Thank you.
All right, this is another area where we really don't know how things are supposed to be done. But if you look at our contract with CCMC, this is something they're supposed to be doing. I mean, if we're going to do this lock, stock, and barrel, why do we need them? We need to get them to do their job properly, by proper oversight of it. You know, certainly, you know, if you're gonna do a proposal out, you set your proposal up, you put it out, they come back and they say, here's our bids. All right, there needs to be a way to evaluate these bids, and you need to figure that out before you send out your RFP. How are we gonna evaluate these bids that come back? And you don't look at them, well, you know, this person did a good job of presenting to me, or, you know, this person has a real pretty bid thing, or this one seems to be a lot of detail and this one doesn't, but you have criteria that you use to evaluate them, and you grade them by that, and then that's how you rank them. And it's not always the cost, there's a number of things involved. So, you know, that's what we need to do. We need to get CCMC doing what they're supposed to be doing the right way. And maybe it's because they don't have the right people here right now. I don't know. But again, this is where we look and we give them expectations as a board, which our board president will do as the interface with CCMC. We'll give them, you know, tell them what we expect of them. And I think, you know, they want our business, they'll meet our expectations.
So totally agree with that. I dispute that the landscaping is the largest contract. The CCMC contract is the largest one. It's about $1 million a year, both for paying for on-site services as well as the back end in Scottsdale, Arizona. So I agree with Tim in terms of RFPs. And actually what Mike said about the CCMC contract, in the contract that was just signed for the beginning of this year, 3 bids on projects of $15,000 or more is in that contract. Managing agent will act solely in negotiating and monitoring contracts. I was checking it out this morning. Management agent will enter into negotiated discount agreements. So if we find a vendor that we know is going to do a good job and can lock in a price for a year or 2 years or 3 years, they should be doing that for us, and they don't do that now. So it goes back to, I think actually a question that Nancy posted about, is one of the people on the staff here to be like a business manager. You know, to be a business person, they could do some of this work with the contracts, with the purchase orders and the like, and then they could make sure that some of these things on the contracts are taken care of.
As it goes down the line, it gets more difficult to answer these.
Just so you agree and just move on.
Thanks for the question, Tim, because it's relevant for sure. It's frustrating, absolutely. But I don't think we should depend on CCMC just because we have a contract with them. I think the board has a responsibility to do what needs to be done. If they can't get CCMC to do it, the board should get it done somehow. The buck stops with the board. Let's not fool ourselves on this issue any longer, okay, folks? The board is responsible for maintaining all the common area properties. The board is responsible. The board is responsible. CCMC is a managed group that has certain responsibilities, but if they don't do it, the board needs to get it done. Simple as that. Done with that.
It's hard to follow Susan sometimes.
Come on,
No, but in regards to CCMC and their contract and all that, I think that the technology committee just voted to get a technology person, an internet person from CCMC. See, everything we do is from CCMC. Why? You know, CCMC this, CCMC that, and we had a person here that could do what this guy is gonna do, but he came over to see what needed to be done, and he charged us for that, just to evaluate, just to say what it was. And then they already voted to hire him again, and then he's gonna take care of the internet and all these other problems. Well, we could have solved those problems a long time ago, but we can't do anything without them doing it. CCMC, you know, they got our money in a bank in Arizona, so I don't know. I'm not too happy with it as it is.
I agree with everything that's said. But let me tell you, if you're waiting for CCMC to get a business manager, you're gonna be waiting a long time. I can't even find the lifestyle program. I think it's gonna be, set up to the board, up to the committees, the two big ones, building and the grounds. Those committees are mostly the ones that deal with contracts. And we gotta rely on our people here that have expertise in that to do the job that CCMC should have been doing. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be up to us, the board and the committees, to get the job done and to save us the money.
Next question, gentleman right there.
Thank you, sir. You guys can hear me all right, right?
Yeah.
All right, good. I hear you.
There's a lot of noise next door.
All right. Now can you hear me?
Everybody hear the question?
Yes, my name is Michael. My wife Sherry, we've been here for 3 years. We live in the reserve. I guess I haven't got an answer from Jack or Dennis about the open meeting portion. And I was trying to find out who is responsible for enforcement of something we kept complaining by letter about a neighbor's yard, and it never gets done, Second request doesn't get done. Whose job is it to follow up with a letter? Is that the CCMC that's supposed to be doing that? That's not? That's my question. And the open meeting for Jack and Dennis.
Okay. Jack and Dennis, which one wants to go first?
Open meeting. Oops. You gotta click it up.
Question about the open meetings. I don't remember the question.
No, he said about that.
Oh, well, that's the open meeting. What was the question you were asking about?
Do you support an open meeting?
You want open meeting?
Oh, yeah, yes, definitely so. Definitely, that's the first way we're gonna get the respect back to the board, is an open meeting with question and answer. You know, that's gotta be the priority going forward. And your other question about the grass, that's the responsibility of the standards coordinator. And I understand we have a pretty good one now. Oh, okay,
Just contact Ignacio, he's the new standard.
Thank you for the question. On the open meetings, absolutely support everything that's been said. I don't know how a board can function without knowing the board is required to implement policies for the betterment of the community, period. That's the legal standard. I don't know how the board can function without getting input from the community. If they think getting input from the community is 7, 8 different committees, maybe 56 people out of 1,800, 3,000, giving them input, they're wrong. Simple as that, they're wrong. They can't meet that standard, that's my honest opinion. It's not only my opinion. But with regard to your second issue, sir, it's a great question. Because in the declaration, under, I think it's paragraph 1.2, under duration, it specifically states that you, I, she, every one of us has the opportunity and the legal right to enforce the CC&Rs. Now, I challenged the board on that a while back and said, I'd like to do that, but you gotta tell me what the policies and procedures are. And they just ignored me, of course. So, we need the board to...
Go ahead. I'm trying to get the other room quiet down.
We need the board to establish those policies and procedures to allow us to do that. Then we don't have to depend on CCMC for anything of that nature to enforce anything. So, they told me just go sue them. That's not the right way to approach a minor issue. But we should have the right to send a letter to your neighbor under your authority as a member under the declaration to do it. But nobody wants to write the policy and procedures, but they need to be done because we're allowed to do it. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to comment on that or feel like they need to? Another question? This gentleman right back here.
Yes. It's kind of loud back there.
And I'll get you next.
Hello. My name is Clyde Howard. Some
Can't
of
hear
y'all
you. You're gonna talk
heard
louder.
me, but is it on?
Should be.
Closer, closer.
My name is Clyde Howard. I live in the Winds, and a lot of you learned about me from the unofficial Facebook page, because I'm the one that found people camping in the woods. And I guess I was rather disappointed. I took it to the front desk. It's not my problem, Mom. And I was like, what? Well, they're not on our property. So, they're a big issue. They're 100 yards or less from some of the people in here. This week, we had 3 people going through door to door. They were here for hours.
Yes.
I foolishly went to the front desk and was told, it's not my problem, Mom. We can't go there anymore. We were told not to. Excuse me? What are they doing? And I'm hearing this again. There seems to be, are we open to looking at CCMC? Is what I would like to know. And just as a quick aside, I haven't joined a committee because, to be blunt, you made a pain in the ass to join them. And I see a lot of head shaking. I understand, and John's right. I'm gone for the summer. But that doesn't mean I'm not here the rest of the year. But you made it such pain. But your thoughts about CCMS, please. Or CCMC, please.
Okay, I guess